If you are a fan of Our Lady Detectives in Botswana and you are just waiting for Grace to find some love in her life, then today's book just might be for you. Today we will be covering In the Company of Cheerful Ladies by Alexander McCall Smith. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and today we're looking at the sixth book in the number one ladies detective agency, In the Company of Cheerful Ladies. This book, just like all of them, is full of some detective stories, and of course the real highlight is really all the other experiences and relationships that are going on in between the main characters, most notably Precious, the owner of the detective agency, and Grace, who initially starts out as her secretary but then goes on to become much more than that, and really just a close friend. And they are the two main characters of this series. Now, as you may recall, at the end of the last book, Precious had finally actually gotten married with Mr. JLB Matakone. He had been kind of dragging his feet. There'd been a few issues along the way, but finally they got married. And so this is their first book where they are married, and they are trying to sort out just what it's like to be married. They, of course, are generally quite happy, but there's a few little things along the way that they have to figure out, one of which being, well, one of the mysteries that Precious takes on. That's, of course, one of the tenants for Mr. JLB Matakone is running some kind of illegal activity, and so she is going to have to find a way to resolve that. That's one of the mysteries. But really the big mystery that presents itself that's not initially much of a mystery is when Precious's ex-husband shows up and threatens her and demands money from her, insisting that she pay up, otherwise he'll reveal that she is actually still married to him. This is going to be one of the few times where it's actually kind of out of Precious's character when she decides to just pay up, and so she goes to his house to make the payment, and it's there that she'll make a discovery that will actually help her to resolve that issue. Those are two of the bigger mysteries that are going on. And then we actually have the introduction of a new character, Mr. Polopetsi. Precious is going to accidentally hit his bike. She'll fix it, even though he won't be hurt at all. And she will find out in the process that he's had a problem getting any kind of employment ever since he spent some time in jail, which seems to have been based off of a real miscarriage of justice, as the book says. Precious, with her ever so large heart, is going to find herself trying to give him opportunities. She gets Mr. JLB Matakone to have him help around the shop, and then she will also use him on some of her detective work, and so she's trying to help this poor guy out. And he's a new character, and I will say he's an interesting character because his appearance in the books are a little inconsistent. He will disappear for a few books and then he will show back up, but this is his introduction, and I wouldn't say he's really one of the major players, but he is a new character worth keeping track of. And then really the biggest plot line in the larger series that you need to know from this book is going to be that Grace is actually finally going to have a little bit of success in her dating life. She's going to go to a dance class where she will meet some people. Worst of all, her arch nemesis from secretarial school, Violet Sopoto, who will actually go on to play an even bigger role in the series, is going to tease her and make fun of her. And she's actually going to end up dancing with an individual that she has reservations. He has a little bit of a stutter. He doesn't seem to be particularly good at dancing, but she quickly starts to feel some affection for him. His name is Puti Radiputi, and she at least feels, maybe it starts as a little bit of sympathy, but as they get to know each other a little better, she starts to appreciate him more, and this will eventually lead to them dating. So he is also another character introduced in this book, and he will go on to play a much bigger role, particularly between himself and Grace, but he'll even have really just connections to the rest of the books from this point on. So you'll see more about him. There's a few little details that I deliberately left out. I can share more of those in the coming books. Just know that in this book, this is where they meet, and this is where their relationship begins. I think those are all the main points from this book that I wanted to cover. As usual, there are some mysteries in there. I didn't tell you all of the resolution to those mysteries, although in this book, I feel like most of the mysteries seem to be a little more directly connected to the main characters and have less to do with people seeking out the agency. So, for example, Precious dealing with her ex-husband, and of course dealing with JLB Matakone's tenant that is not being cooperative and involved in some kind of illegal activity. So those are the main points, and like I said, they're a little more directly connected to the characters and have less to do with the actual detective agency. As you guys know, I I love these books. I think they're such a fascinating read. I really love the main characters. And this one in particular, I think, is a pretty important book in the series because of the introduction of these two characters, Mr. Palapetsi, even though, like I said, his importance is not super consistent, at least not through the next several books. And then, of course, the introduction of Puti Raraputi, who is going to continue to be a very important character in the books. And so I would say that that makes this an incredibly important book. And, of course, the fact that it is showing Grace finally having a little more success in her romantic life. And then, of course, there's some other storylines. You have the apprentices are getting in trouble again. I think Charlie is getting involved with a married woman. And so you have all sorts of the usual excitement in these books. But I think that the fact that this has two characters and, of course, a milestone for Grace makes this one of the more important books. But again, I enjoy all of them, whether it's because these grand moments or just because of these small interactions. As a matter of fact, one of the things I wanted to do is just read some of my favorite quotes from this book because I love the language in it. I think that's one of my favorite things. So just I just went through and I picked out a few of the quotes from this specific book that highlighted the characters. So here's just a few of the quotes that I really like. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but the head of the orphanage is a really important character in these books, and she's famous for her fruitcake. And there's one time where they even say there are many temptations in this life, but cake is probably one of the biggest of them. And it is true that she uses her fruitcake to get a lot of assistance from people. When she offers a piece of fruitcake, that is both a blessing and a curse because it means you get a delicious piece of fruitcake, but you know she's about to ask something of you. This is another one. They say you can only wear one pair of shoes at a time, she said. Rich people are like the rest of us. 2 feet, 10 toes, we're all the same that way. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but Grace loves shoes. Even though she does not have a lot of money, it is just an obsession with hers, and the shoes will actually go on to continue to play an even bigger role in the series. So this is just a quote that I thought was both humorous, informative, and it just focused a little bit more on Grace's fascination with shoes and obsession with shoes. And then just one more quote that I think is maybe a little more elevated in its significance. A life without stories would be no life at all. And stories bound us, did they not, one to another, the living to the dead, people to animals, people to the land. Which, of course, is the whole point of a novel, particularly a novel like this, is to tell stories. So I really enjoy that quote. But all that is to say that the books are full of these little pockets of wisdom, and the little aphorisms is one of the things I really enjoy about this book series. Not just these fun little lines, they do also make a lot of references to proverbs from Botswana, which I appreciate, and it's just one of the things that really makes these colorful books and makes them a fun and fascinating read, in addition to just the general social life and relationships between all the main characters and all the different things that go on in the books. As usual, I would recommend this book to anyone already reading the series. I think they're great. I don't think you would want to jump into this book. That is one of the issues of this series, is that you do need to go back to the beginning, and it is a long series, but so far I'm loving it, and I will finish this series, at least the books that have been done, by the end of the year, and I've really enjoyed it. I've no regrets starting this series, and I'll be a little sad when I'm done, but as far as I know, the series is not done, and so hopefully more books will come out in the coming years. Who wouldn't I say this for? Well, these books are playful, so if you're looking for good mystery novels that take themselves a little more seriously, then this might not be the book for you. And again, if you're not interested in such a big series, or you have something against mystery novels as a whole, then maybe this isn't for you. Or, as I've said from the beginning, because a big focus of this series is not just the crimes that are being solved or the mysteries that are being resolved, but it is the relationships between all the main characters. And if you don't think that it's going to appeal to you, as usual, I would say this book is not going to be for you. But again, as always, I would love to know what you guys have to say about this book or this series as a whole. Please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.